Welcome to another episode of All Things Authentic. As always, we're grateful that you're joining us today for an important topic. And so we are going to be discussing our inner child. I know you've probably heard that so much more within the more recent years, I think. But we're answering the question of, can you truly heal your inner child? So inner child, when you think about like, okay, what exactly is this? What does this look like? And there's a lot of layers to it, but to make it easier to really see what this will look like, it's kind of like different parts of self, but also like this subconscious part of self too. And so really, literally since childhood, it's been picking up on all these different like messages, experiences, emotions, and feelings. Even before we were able to like fully process mentally and emotionally what was going on around us. But our inner child's almost that subconscious that's been like picking up on all these things and kind of storing them in some type of bank. But the inner child really holds a lot of these emotions, memories, beliefs from the past, but as well as holding like hopes and dreams for the future too. And so kind of that balance of both. So maybe you have some specific thoughts on just like your initial thoughts when you hear inner child. But what this makes me think about, random, but it connects, is the movie Inside Out. So the second one just came out most recently, so that's why I really thought about it. Yeah. But I really didn't see the first one until not too long.
I didn't even see the first one at me live. But the second one was good and I jumped right in.
Okay, I think the first one's even better.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So, but if people have hopefully seen it, it just gives you the visualization. Yeah. So obviously the concept of Inside Out is, those are all the different like feelings and emotions, like sadness, joy, anger. So there's all these different parts and feelings and they're like their own character. But it really speaks to like us having our own parts as like almost separate characters of self. But especially when we think about that inner child, it is this like acting character within us, as you would see on like Inside Out, right? But it's all these different like emotions and memories stored up. And the goal of all of those characters and parts is to try to keep the core self safe, right? And like content and like happy and all those things. So that was like the first visualization I thought about when I thought about inner child and how people can resonate with that.
What I was thinking about is the show with Kerry Washington, the show she has on Hulu. I think it's called Unprisoned.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Okay, but you know, there's a visualization of her inner child coming out as it relates to experiences of trauma and also her relationship with her father and like attachment. So it made me think about how, like, again, you know, our experiences from early on, from childhood, and from that show, like, you'll see her inner child pop up in different circumstances or scenarios that she's experiencing and kind of like speak to what she's experiencing in terms of like her inner child. And I think it's a powerful representation of that, you know, of how it might look. The same way with Inside Out, where you can see the different feelings or emotions, like the parts of a person talking and speaking. And then you can see how they kind of come together to impact someone's decision-making or behavior.
Yeah, interesting. And I don't know if it like spoils too much, but in that show, how do you know it's her inner child that's coming out?
It's an actual child. Like a a representation. It's like a visual, separate person representation of her inner child, like talking in a situation and like with her. Like, so she's driving in the car and the inner child pops up in the back because something happened and the inner child is speaking, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's also kind of it also makes it like a distinct, though, like it's a distinct part of her, meaning that it's not in the front seat driving, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want the inner child necessarily to be in the front seat driving, but it is a part of a person, and that inner child is talking in that show. And then the character has an opportunity to decide kind of how to respond to whatever she's going through.
Nice. Okay. Oh, I like that. Yeah, I've seen some people talk about it. I didn't know the concept or what it is. I'm like, is it a therapist that wrote the show or something? Because that's pretty in depth about the the actual inner child. So I'd be nice I want to go watch it now too, but for maybe people listening to watch that, because it really shows you what we're talking about when we speak about the inner child. And but I think that's why this conversation is so important. One, touching on the part of like, can you truly heal the inner child? But also the importance of our inner child, because like you said, you don't want the inner child driving the car for you, but we see that all the time in the work we do, of course. Individuals are allowing their inner child to like run the show. And that's where this concept of healing the inner child comes in, because it starts to become a necessity, because now you're letting the inner child run your life and ruin some aspects of your life. It's ruining relationships, because inner child's trying to tell you like, nope, don't do that, or yes, do this, and it's probably not the right things to do. And so I think ultimately the healing will look like having these parts of self, and more so this inner child too, really being emotionally regulated. And that's a difficult place to get to. And that's why it kind of reminds me of Inside Out, especially the first one. Now, I don't want to tell you too much, but it's almost like each emotion, and one emotion in particular in the first one, is trying to like overpower the others, of like, no matter what the core self, so the main character, is going through, like, she has to feel this way, she has to feel this way, she has to feel this way, and it's not making room for like other things that are going on. So inner child's extremely important, but our goal is to get like emotionally regulated, where the inner child can still be helpful for us, but not like dictating actions.
I like the idea of of emotional regulation being like the point, or like the core idea of it. And also like that it doesn't necessarily, it's not like necessarily a bad thing, or that we have to kind of like squash it down. Like, I think the idea of Inside Out, at least the one that I've seen, so what I'm going to extrapolate is that the idea is that all parts are welcome. And we're not necessarily trying to like squash a part, or not allow that part to exist. We're working towards regulating ourselves emotionally and allowing the parts to kind of work together.
And this maybe will put you on the spot some, but now I'm thinking like, I wonder what this looks like if people were actually to reflect on their like inner child. Some people are very in tune with their inner child, and almost has a sense like naming it. I had a guest, my first guest in the first season. She did multiple episodes though. But she did an amazing episode on trauma, and she discussed a lot of her past history, and she almost had like a name for her childhood version of self, knowing that they were like two separate beings, right? But the impact of that inner child, where she was able to give her like a name per se. So for you, I'm wondering, if you think about your own inner child, are there instances where they're like present, or maybe where that they're trying to get in the driver's seat and you kind of have to resist them, or maybe you can't resist them, or any thoughts on that?
I don't think I think about it, or at least think about it in that term, or in it. But if I were to think about it, I think there are plenty of times where my inner child is trying to take the front seat and drive with all of her dreams and aspirations, but also like her fears and the things that she doesn't like. And that probably sometimes when I be like going on my little emotional benders, like yesterday, if I sat and think about it, I do think that a big piece of that was perhaps my inner child, my inner child's fears and anxieties also coupled with my inner child's aspirations and desires for life, and those things kind of coming together to create a perfect storm of me like spiraling.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
I know, because it's interesting, because that thought came up to ask you the question, and then I assumed it'd have to be my turn. But even I'm like, I don't even know what I would say, because like you said, it's not a thought much. Obviously, a lot of this work comes out in some of my sessions, so it's a thought when I'm helping others, but reflecting on my own, it's not really this thought of like, is this my inner child? But I think when there's instances where a lot of these different emotions can come out, I think the inner child is where my perfectionism is rooted, where feelings of shame is maybe rooted, because a lot of that thing we learned very early on, right? So now going on, I guess, this journey of like, maybe that was healing the inner child. When I did a lot of work around perfectionism, shame, self-worth, I just chalk it up of like, it was this journey of that, but I've never labeled it of like, that was probably my journey of healing the inner child, right? Because there's a background to a lot of those feelings. So maybe when I have those instances where I feel that perfectionism's maybe shining through, shame might be at a high, where it's like this feeling of not being enough, anxiety's creeping in because of that. I think that's that inner child, right? Maybe trying to kick in, and then trying to tell me like in the driver's seat of like, let me take over, let's go do all these things to like make sure you're perfect in this and do this, where now I have more of that balance of like, that's not the answer. So like, I got it, but thanks for the little reminder that you're still here, but like, I got it. So
it's funny that you sound like you're still here. I think if you were to watch the show with Kerry Washington, like that thing popped up, like you're still here, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe I don't know that we ever like necessarily get rid of them, but maybe there's space for them. Maybe that's a part of the work, is creating space where they have their space, but you are still in the driving seat.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that will resonate with a lot of just the psychology around it too, because it will ultimately help answer this question of like, can we heal the inner child? Is it this like finite type healing, or what does this look like? So
thanks for tapping in to All Things Authentic. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. For full episodes, find All Things Authentic on your favorite podcast listening platform.